Hello everyone, this is Eye on Africa for Tuesday, August 24th. Here are the headlines. Algeria cuts diplomatic ties with its neighbor Morocco. The two countries have had a difficult relationship for many years. Hakainde Hichilema is Zambia's new president. The 59-year-old has promised to deliver a united, prosperous, and equitable nation. And 2 soldiers are killed and another one is kidnapped as armed men attack Nigeria's elite military academy. We'll have more from Lagos in just a moment. But first, the Algerian government is severing diplomatic ties with its neighbor Morocco. In a press conference, the country's foreign minister claimed Morocco had, quote, never stopped carrying out hostile actions against Algeria. In recent weeks, authorities have accused their neighbor of supporting a Berber independence group who itself has been accused of starting the deadly forest fires earlier this month. For more, let's bring in William Lawrence. He's a professor of political science at the American University in Washington, and he's also the former North Africa project director at the International Crisis Group. Thank you very much for joining us here. As we've just mentioned, the Algerian authorities accusing their neighbor of hostile actions, and this is after years and years of animosity between the two countries.
Yeah, so this has in some ways been decades in the making, ever since the independence of the two countries, when Algeria was awarded a big swath of Moroccan territory, and about a year in the making ever since Morocco became much more aggressive in its needling of Algeria on a number of issues, either directly related or indirectly related to the Western Sahara issue, culminating in a series of gestures and statements by Morocco this summer that just began to cross the line. And Algerians said, that's enough is enough. Both sides are making false accusations against each other. So Algeria accusing Morocco of being behind the fires, which is ridiculous. And Morocco accusing Algeria of working with Iran and Hamas against its interests, which is ridiculous. And a number of other claims. But there's also some real grievances here, such as the Pegasus spying episode, statements that the Israeli minister made when he was visiting Morocco, encouraged by the Moroccans, and a number of other things. And it's just gotten to the point where Algeria drew a line and said that's enough.
The past few decades, the relationship between the two countries, there's been a lot of tit-for-tat diplomatic decisions. We know that Morocco, several decades ago, recalled their ambassador in Algeria and severed diplomatic ties with that country. Land borders have been closed since 1994. So do we know what the severing of diplomatic ties today will mean in this situation?
Well, in one sense, it's the end of a number of very prickly and contentious conversations over the last year. And in another sense, it's the beginning of another conversation because they're leaving the consular services open. The countries have a number of relationships with it that have to be maintained, including energy relationships. And in the end, they're going to have to reconcile one way or another. But they did have a long break from 1976 to 1988 when there were no official diplomatic relations. As you said, the border's been closed since 1994. And every time there's a dust-up, there's mobilization along the border and risk of war. I remember one time just a couple of years back after some diplomatic incidents at the UN and Moscow and elsewhere, the jets were circling above my head at the border, and it looked like a war was about to break out. So there's a lot of this sort of Cold War type thing and hot rhetoric, and there is a risk of a hot war breaking out. As you know, the ceasefire between Western Sahara and Morocco broke down last November. So ostensibly, we're in a state of war between Morocco and an Algerian proxy. So that risks getting much worse with this cutting off of diplomatic relations.
William Lawrence joining us from Washington, D.C. with that analysis. Thank you very much. Hakainde Hichilema is officially the new president of Zambia. The 59-year-old longtime member of the opposition was sworn in at a ceremony in Lusaka this Tuesday. Nicolas Jama has the story.
The crowd in the Heroes Stadium in Lusaka was so noisy it was hard to hear Hakainde Hichilema's swearing-in ceremony. The 59-year-old emphatically defeated incumbent Edgar Lungu earlier this month in his 6th attempt at winning the presidency. Zambia became only the second country in southern Africa in recent years to transfer its presidency to an opposition candidate after Malawi in 2020. Hichilema pledged to rebuild Zambia's ailing economy.
We are intertwined, we can share we can share common benefits, common value from the process of development. That is possible. It just needs a clever and smart way of mixing it up, and we'll do that.
Hichilema is the former CEO of an accounting firm, and he promised to use his business background to attract investment. Among his main tasks will be the reduction of the nation's debt and the fight against corruption. It's the third time in Zambia's history that power has peacefully shifted to opposition parties. Hichilema's victory is also the 17th opposition win in sub-Saharan Africa since 2015. Analysts say this encouraging trend is mainly driven by young voters more connected to the outside world.
Tunisian President Kais Saied has extended special powers that he gave himself at the end of last month. On July 25th, he invoked Article 8 of the Constitution, fired the Prime Minister, froze Parliament, and lifted lawmakers' immunity. The country's constitution allows these special measures for 30 days, and Saied was expected to roll these back by tomorrow. A new decree now says these measures will remain in place until further notice. The president is expected to address the nation in the coming days. It's the end of a dark chapter in Chad's history. Former dictator Hissène Habré has died at the age of 79. Some 40,000 people are estimated to have been killed because of brutal crackdowns on dissent during his rule. France and the United States were major supporters of Habré, helping him take power and providing his regime with massive amounts of military aid. Karis Garland has more.
His rule was one marked by repression. Hissène Habré seized power by force in 1982, becoming Chad's third president. Under Habré, so-called political police were sent to every village to document even the slightest transgressions against the regime. His opponents were then arrested, imprisoned and tortured. Hashim Ismail says he was one of them. Revisiting his old prison cell, he recounts tales of suffering.
We were in small cells of 3 by 4 meters, which couldn't hold more than 10 people. There were 27 of us packed in there. Lots of people died.
Habré was ousted in 1990, after which a commission of inquiry was formed, alleging his government carried out some 40,000 politically motivated murders and 200,000 cases of torture during his 8 years in power. He also sent women as sexual slaves to serve in the army and is responsible for waves of ethnic cleansing. Having fled to Senegal, Habré led a quiet life for more than 20 years, but in 2013 he was arrested and tried by a special trial set up by the African Union. In 2016, the former dictator was convicted of crimes against humanity and sentenced to life in prison. He was also ordered to pay up to 30,000 euros to victims of rape, arbitrary detention and imprisonment during his rule, as well as to victims' relatives.
Now to an unusual request in South Africa. Allies of former President Jacob Zuma, who was jailed last month due to contempt of court, are asking the public to donate money to help him with his legal fees. In a tweet, the Jacob Zuma Foundation said, "Dear people of South Africa and the world, please lend a helping hand. We humbly request for donation support to help cover the legal fees of our patron." Zuma is currently embroiled in a corruption case linked to an arms deal signed more than 20 years ago. He faces 16 charges of fraud, graft, and racketeering. 2 officers have been killed and 1 other kidnapped in a shocking attack on Nigeria's elite military academy. The high-security base is located just outside the city of Kaduna. It trains Nigerian officers and cadets from other African armies. Sam Olukoya has more from Lagos.
Even though no group has claimed responsibility for the attack on the Nigerian Defense Academy, armed groups known as bandits are suspected to be behind the attack. There are several groups of bandits operating in northwest Nigeria and north central Nigeria. The group of bandits are behind the spate of abductions of school children in the region. Now the bandits have taken the attack to the military. 2 officers dead, one abducted, 1 other injured. The Nigerian Defense Academy is one of the most secure places in Nigeria. By taking kidnapping to the military, it seems the bandits are sending out a clear message to Nigeria. Nowhere is safe in Nigeria, and nobody is safe in the country. There is growing evidence that the bandits have grown over time. These groups started as small groups, but now they have grown into well-organized armed groups. The number of bandits have grown, their equipment, their weapons have improved substantially. In June, a group of bandits shot down a Nigerian Air Force plane that was attacking their location. The bandit attack on the Nigerian Defense Academy comes at a time Nigerians are drawing a parallel with Afghanistan. Since the Taliban took over Afghanistan, Nigerians on the pages of newspaper, on social media, have been predicting that the country, like Afghanistan, will soon be taken over by armed groups. Bandits and jihadist groups like Boko Haram are those being said to have the potential to take over Nigeria in future.
That is Eye on Africa. Thank you for watching. The news continues on France 24 after a quick break.